Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here, and it's that time yet again for another edition of Jason and the Gentleman, episode 22. And of course, to do the show as always, we need the gentleman of mixed martial arts, the gentleman Josh Hill, who is safe from his travels from Sacramento back to lovely Southern Ontario. Josh, how was the trip? And glad to see you made it home safe.
It was good, man. Thanks. Yeah, I mean it's always fun going out there. It was just nice to be out and I mean, California's still very restricted as far as you got to mask up everywhere, and they still can't have indoor dining yet. But as far as the gym, goes, it was great just to go in there and actually feel like normal, you know what I mean, and work out and train and have access to a full gym. And yeah, it was nice. It was a good break.
So I guess besides the gym stuff, really no difference from California and the entire country of Canada.
Yeah, really, it's the same thing, to be honest. Other than Faber's gym, it's pretty much the same boat and just nicer weather.
Yeah, the weather, they've definitely got a 10-8 round on us on that aspect. But and as well, congrats on your chess victory over Faber on the podcast.
Yeah, man. He asked me to play if I play chess. I'm like, yeah, I know how to play. I mean, I played probably 5 times in the last 10 years. But yeah, I sat down, had a game, and I've seen him play on and with other people before, so I thought he'd be pretty good. He was pretty good, but yeah, it just happened. I beat him in a game of chess, and it was fun though, man. It was good times.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time out there, and got the win and showed another skill in your toolbox on the chess side of things. But yeah, glad to see you back, and I'm sure your family's glad to see you back as well, Josh.
Yeah, it sucks being away from them, for a long time. Wish I could just, if my baby girl is a bit older, I just, bring her along, but I'm not putting a mask on her on a plane or anything like that. So, and I seen some story. I just seen Cody, he's got the same age kid as me, and he just got kicked off a flight because his kid wouldn't wear a mask. So I just don't want to deal with that headache. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that logic. Like, I understand why everyone else should wear a mask, but I thought, honestly, the rule was if you were, like, between the ages of, like, a baby to, like, 3, they weren't really making you wear it because you're still an infant and don't understand why you're wearing it. But whatever. I know that there was an issue with that back at the start of COVID with WestJet, but yeah, probably the right choice not to deal with that headache, especially with how stressful everyone working for the airlines is too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just overall it's just stupid, But yeah. I'll stay away from that.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's stay away from that because we got a lot to get into because we had a very eventful UFC pay-per-view this past weekend, UFC 259, 3 titles on the line. And I guess before we go into this card, I just saw, I was waiting for you to get on, Megan Anderson on her Twitch channel announced that the UFC's women's 145-pound division will be dissolved after May 22nd when Felicia Spencer and Danielle Wolf have a fight on the Fight Night card that will take place May 22nd. So we talked about it before, Josh, that, if Megan didn't win, this division probably would be eradicated, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, we're not surprised by this. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know, to be honest, how many women are in that division. And the top ones have all fought and lost to Nunes, and pretty decisively too. Really. Megan's lost, Felicia's lost, Holly's lost. Cyborg's with Bellator now, right? So there's really nobody else there. So it's a pretty shallow division, and one that probably doesn't have a lot of fanfare as far as stylistic matchups and stuff like that. So I mean, I get it, and she's a double champ anyway, so she's still the champ at 35. So there's still lots of other fights for her. So it sucks for the women that are in that division, for sure. Feel for them, but I mean, it's kind of I'm not surprised.
No, I'm not surprised at all, especially when you have a champion that just runs through everyone like a hot knife through butter, wins so convincingly, and doesn't as well generate her title fights as, like, she's never the main headliner. She's always defending that title, co-main event status, or if she is defending it on her own, she's not really drawing that well. And this division is also like everyone that's really good is kind of spread out through MMA. Like you have Nunes in the UFC now, Cyborg's in Bellator. You also have Julia Budd who's in Bellator, and the other like big one that they could have got was maybe Kayla Harrison, but she's at PFL at women's 155. So even if she wanted to cut the weight, but I do expect now that this division dissolves, I expect Bellator to hop on this and bring everyone in and try to maybe make women's 145 in Bellator a marquee division, especially with kind of the depth they do have there with Cyborg, Julia Budd, and some of the other females.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I wouldn't be surprised if they picked up a few of them and built up their division because they have a little bit more depth there at 45 with Cyborg being the champ. So I think you'll see a few of them anyway go over there or go down to 35 if they can.
Yeah, I think that's the other option, right? If you want to stay in the UFC, you got to make that cut. But I'm just thinking like a Felicia Spencer, she's kind of just naturally kind of that frame of 145 kind of fits her perfectly. So it's either she'd go up to 155, maybe go to the PFL next year, or Bellator and stay at women's 145. I don't know. I mean, this is just breaking, but I would expect Bellator to kind of pounce on this and make something of it where Cyborg could have some serious challengers, especially, a Megan Anderson Cyborg. Like, that's an interesting fight right there. Or anyone else that would be in the UFC's women's 145, potentially now going to Bellator.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the more depth, the better, right? That's what you see in this division here. And the UFC wanted it was just so shallow that, a few title defenses, it's dried up. So the deeper, the better.
Well, you know what? Best of luck. And it's going to be crazy that this division goes away. I mean, this was the status of a flyweight division if Cejudo didn't beat Demetrius Martin. Like, this would have been the same situation. And it's crazy. Maybe if the UFC waited it out and tried to get some more girls developed, they could have eventually made it kind of a marquee division, or things could have worked out, but it's just not in the cards right now. And UFC's also seems like in a cost-cutting mode, right? Like, if you can cost and get rid of a whole division, you're saving a lot of dollars right now.
I think, you've seen some cuts already. So I don't know how many there's been in the last 6 months or so, but I think you're going to see a lot more because of the influx during COVID. I know they signed like so many people, probably a lot that would never have been signed if it wasn't for COVID, to be honest. Not to talk nasty, but the pandemic created a lot of opportunities for fighters because there's a lot of short notice fights that people got that fighters on the roster either turned down because they didn't have a proper training camp and they didn't want to risk losing and getting cut themselves, right? So I think there's an influx of guys, and especially with the Contender Series, that they're going to have to release somebody because they're not going to be able to fulfill all the contracts. There's an overflow. So I think you'll see a big dump pretty soon again.
Well, we've seen like small dumps. They've dumped some guys that have had like either due to inactivity, you haven't fought for them in a year or so, or 0-2s, and they just dumped like Junior Dos Santos and Alistair Overeem last week, and like UFC's already talking about Contender Series for this upcoming summer, starting at the end of June. So they're already waiting for the next wave of more guys to sign. So yeah, I would agree that there's going to be another dump again, and this women's 145 division, that's a lot of fighters gone. They can clear some cash out on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think many of them were big dough anyway. I mean, Reem and Dos Santos were bigger, but yeah, the women's I don't see many of them being a big paydays,
No, but I mean, if you can cut costs anywhere, right? Like you're seeing that not only just in sports, but you're seeing that with any business right now. If they can cut your contract or get rid of you, they'll find a way to do it, and then to save themselves some money. But yeah, so I mean, that's just kind of coming in hot off the press as we get going. But now we can kind of focus our attention to last Saturday, Josh, where we had the 3 title fights. Let's talk with the main event where Israel Adesanya, the middleweight champion, went up to fight Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title. And I thought Izzy fought, good for the first 2 rounds. I thought the tide turned towards, that third round. That third round is where I gave Jan, and then Jan kind of took over thanks to those takedowns and getting some full mount positions. But I don't know. It seemed like Izzy kind of got tired, and maybe just that difference in, from 185 to 205 caught up to him as the fight continued.
Yeah, here's a fight that I wasn't, like we talked about, I wasn't really pumped for. And I thought Adesanya would win, to be honest, because, I like Jan, and I'm happy for him. I just think he's that big kind of like slower guy. Definitely hits harder, way stronger, bigger man. But I thought he'd be, less skilled in striking and slower, less athletic. So I thought Izzy would kind of pick him apart, move around, and it kind of started like that, slower than I thought. But he definitely was, had his range on him, and he was winning the fight, not beating him up, but winning. And yeah, he just kind of slowed down. I don't know if it was the weight because, I think he came in weighing like what 200 or yeah 200 pounds. So he probably came in, at what he bounces back after he makes weight at 185 or pretty close to. So I wouldn't say that and he's gone 5 rounds before. So I wouldn't say it would be the weight. I don't know. He didn't look, kind of just fell off after a little bit there. And yeah, and once he got taken down too, it was like you see what happens when he has a bigger guy on top of him. And obviously Izzy is an incredible striker, but his wrestling and grappling, yeah, I mean, it really kind of got exposed with a bigger man for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this fight, like, obviously the last two rounds, championship rounds for sure, were for Jan. You could maybe make the case the third round could be for Izzy, but I went with Jan. But really, that first round was kind of the closest competitive round where I gave it to Adesanya just because I thought he did enough. But I just thought, yeah, he got tired and had to carry that extra weight that he's not really used to carrying. And then, Jan was able to get full mount to close it out. But I don't know. But I thought the scorecards made it seem like a totally different fight than the one I watched. Like, I and a lot of people had it like either Jan 48-47 or Izzy 48-47. But the two judges scored that fifth round, a 10-8 round, which I don't think at all that was a 10-8 round because it was a pretty even round up until Jan got that takedown.
That's not a 10-8 round. So I don't, what I mean? There was no 10-8 rounds in that fight at all. A 10-8
No.
round is you're getting your ass kicked and like you survived and you got out of there, you survived by the bell. But that didn't happen. I mean, he got taken down and controlled. But that wasn't 10-8. No.
Do you think Dana seemed very upset about the use of 10-8s? He kind of wants to go the old school way where you had to earn a 10-8, and in the new modern scoring, they're trying to just enforce a 10-8 a little more. And I'm kind of with him on that because if you're going to score that a 10-8 round in a championship fight where most people who saw it much closer than it was, I think we need to go back to like kind of that way of the 10-8 thinking than just if it's kind of one-sided a little bit, giving it a 10-8 round.
No, I agree with him. You can't have those type. That's not a 10-8 round. You know what I mean? And I mean, up to me, I'd get rid of the whole thing completely. 10-minute round. You judge the fight in entirety. If it's that close and it's a draw, you go to a sudden death 5-minute round like Pride style. And I think that would be the best results. I know it would be a little bit slower maybe in that because if you get a fight that's slower paced and a 10-minute round, it's going to go for a long time, right? But and then that's where Pride, gave the warning cards, you know what I mean? And kind of, deduct your money if you're just stalling. So that can make things more interesting. I think that's a better route. But if they're going to stick to this, the 3 rounds or 5 rounds, 5-minute ones, yeah, that you have to really, a 10-8 should be really earned. And it should be like an ass kicking.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with Dana as well. I mean, Dana, he says a lot of things that we normally don't agree with, but this one I'm fully with him on it. Definitely, you gotta find a way to earn it and show it because that's just such a discrepancy in the scorecard for a fight that was really close. And if it really hadn't turned the tide it did from rounds 3 to the end, like this could be a much more controversial talking point, giving Jan a 10-8 round in a really close fight like that. But,
Yeah.
Speaking of Jan, like this is a guy no one gave any credit for. A guy at one point was 2-4 in the UFC. No one thought he was going to win this fight. Very few people, if any, picked him. And now he's, proving to be one of the best light heavyweights out there. Found a way to grind out Israel Adesanya in his first title defense. He's finally had a title defense now. And now he has a clear path to fighting Glover Teixeira, later on this year.
Yeah, good for him, man. I'm happy to see that, a guy like that, where it's definitely an underdog story. Counted out, nobody thought he would be a champ, and he's doing it, man. He's putting it together, and he's winning. And this is a fight that I picked Izzy too. I did not pick Jan to win. Yeah, he proved people wrong, and I think it just goes to show though, like what would happen really if John Jones fought Izzy, after watching a fight like that, at 205. I thought John would win regardless, no matter what before this fight. But after seeing that, I just imagine I think it would just be so one-sided beating.
Yeah, I mean, that seemed to be one of the plans too for the UFC, right? Eventually get there with John Jones. And now that's definitely, if anything, put back a year and maybe never now because
I think
is
never.
he, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's going to happen. John seems really committed at being a heavyweight now, and he's put on a lot of mass. And Izzy may have proved that's why there are weight classes. There was just a little bit too much of a size discrepancy against Jan on Saturday night. And you know what? Go do your thing and create a legacy for yourself at 185 because he's arguably pound for pound one of the best fighters and arguably one of the best middleweights of all time.
Yeah, it's I think it's a stay in your lane type thing. You took a shot and you went up, and I think it was actually the right matchup to do it with, as I thought he would win that stylistically. But it just kind of proved that you're better at your weight class. You're killing it there, so just kind of stick with that, and your legacy's still intact down there, right? It doesn't change anything with that. So stay at 185, do your thing, and there's still going to be some challenges down there.
And I think as well, like with Izzy losing, it really shows how hard it is to make that jump from a weight class up and win a title. Like we saw it a couple years ago, a year or so ago in Bellator when Rory McDonald went up from welterweight to middleweight, and Mousasi, really handed it to him. Like that's why there's weight classes, and it really proved that there. And that seems to be the trend now. Is you're going to make that jump up, that weight and that size is going to be a little bit maybe too much for you unless you get the perfect conditioning or just have the right game plan.
Well, it changes. It's the lighter weight classes. It's not as big of a factor, right? I mean, it's still a factor for sure. But if I'm jumping up from 35 to 45, it's only 10 pounds. But if I'm going from 85, or sorry, welterweight to middleweight, I'm going up 15 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm going middleweight to light heavy, I'm going up 20. So that's a big weight class or big weight difference, right? So, and then even if you're going from 205, a lot of those guys are cutting down. But look at a guy like a Randy Couture that fought 185 fighting a Lesnar. The difference there. You've seen what happened. Like it's way too much. So yeah, the smaller you go, the less, I guess, there'll be a weight discrepancy. But it's still effective, obviously. But yeah, going up to that much weight class, 20 pounds. It's a big difference, man.
And it definitely was. And I think we, out of that one, we get some clarity now. We know, Glover was there. He weighed in as the backup. He's now obviously the number one contender to fight Jan later on this year. And I like to see that. I like the clarity. And I like that, nothing's official, but that Jan's going to defend the title against Glover, who really earned it. He's, 40. He'll get that opportunity. No one's really else has made some noise. And Izzy's back at 185, and I don't think his legacy gets hurt by this at all. He took a risk. It didn't work out, and he can go now defend his title against either Darren Till, Robert Whitaker, or even Marvin Vettori, as the middleweight has kind of a mini tournament starting next month.
Yeah. I mean, that's I guess the only option, really.
Yeah. So, all in all, no one. I think it worked out for the both of them, and in a way, I mean, sure, Adesanya has his first loss as a pro in mixed martial arts, but still the champion at 185, and there are looking to be at least some contenders there. But moving down to the co-main event, which was Amanda Nunes beating Megan Anderson, and did it such dominant fashion, and as we just talked about that they're getting rid of the women's 145-pound division, but. I just can't think of Amanda. There was the questions of, her being a mom. Is that going to affect her a little bit? No, not at all. Went in there and just ran through Megan. But I mean, just adding to her legacy, right? That's all Amanda Nunes just does. Every time she gets in there, she just makes it much more a Hall of Fame ballot candidate to her record.
Yeah, she's just pure confident, right? She knows her skill set, and she's full of confidence, man. And she went in there, and Megan Anderson looked like she had too much respect for her. Kind of was almost timid. Who's in front of her. You know what I mean? She's kind of giving her that too much respect, and like, oh my God, I'm actually here, fighting Nunes in a championship match. But yeah, man, she made it look easy. blew through her. I don't think she got hit. To be honest, it was like a minute and a half or something, 2 minutes
It
in.
was, yeah, it was about around that neighborhood.
Yeah, hit her a couple of times, kind of like wobbled her and it took her down, and then got that, nice reverse triangle armbar, and finished her off. So it wasn't. It was a Mortal Kombat flawless victory.
Yeah, pretty much. And obviously, it's so flawless. You've eradicated now a division in the UFC, as we talked about at the top here. And now she's got to focus on women's 135 because, I know Juliana Pena just called her out to eventually get that fight. I don't know if they make that happen. I mean, it's a fight we haven't seen before, so maybe, but it seems like maybe the next big fight for Amanda would be fighting Valentina again.
Yeah, really. I mean, they fought twice already.
Yeah, twice. Yes.
Yeah, and it was both very close, but she's won both times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's tough, right? Like it's hard because really that's the only one with the skill set really that's, at her level. You know what I mean? And there has been two fights, but she has won close decisions both times, so it's kind of hard to make the third fight, but really that's kind of all there is. I mean, she already beat Holly Holm, and how many title shots are you going to give Holly? As much as I love Holly, I don't know how many times she's fought for the title. So yeah, that really, I mean, really the only match that really gets me excited to see anyway.
I think it kind of is a little bit bigger now because while they have fought a couple times and they were close fights, like Valentina's built this dominant, wrecking ball image, and she's kind of crushed all these girls at women's flyweight. So now if she were to come back up to women's 135 for their super fight against Amanda, I think it'd have a little bit more bearing, and at least a lot of people would maybe know who Valentina is a little bit more now. But yeah, I think it's just two women that have such super skill sets in their divisions, and it seems like they're just back on a title course. They're like two magnets just connecting with each other, and I think that's the only way to go. Maybe they give Nunes her first title defense back at 135 against Juliana Pena because she's calling for it and they haven't made it. Just for a fresh matchup, I don't know, but I see the same kind of thing at what Amanda did at 145 to just Megan that would happen to Juliana.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. I think that would just be a fight because it's somebody she hasn't fought before. But yeah, I don't see that being a very competitive fight. I don't see her winning anywhere, to be honest. But if they do that one, then it's somebody different. But yeah, I'd see, Valentina probably be the most competitive fight and the biggest matchup and do another champ versus champ type thing again.
Yeah, and if they were to make that, it would definitely be towards the end of the year because I know Valentina, she's defending her title against Jessica Andrade, I believe in April, end of April, so April 24th, UFC 261. So would definitely have to be towards the end of, all depending how unscathed Valentina would be to come out. But then again, there's still, like, Jessica could beat her, so that could also throw wrenches in that. But that's still a little bit down the road. And then I guess the fight everyone was most looking forward to and has the most talking points coming out of it was the Bantamweight title fight. Petr Yan defended against Aljamain Sterling, and I thought it was a pretty competitive fight. As we were heading to championship rounds, it seemed like Aljo's gas tank was starting to fade a bit, but now it doesn't matter because Yan threw a knee clearly when Sterling was down right through like the center of his face, and I don't understand this comments from some of the fan base or whatever that Aljo was faking or adding a little bit more. Like, dude, he took a knee square in the face from such a short distance. Like, he was hurt and out. But like, I don't it was just wild to see it from Yan, especially you're the champion, you should know the rule not to do it, but he did it, and we saw our first ever title change hands by disqualification. And I mean, you as a fighter, Josh, I mean, you had to be losing it seeing that happening.
Yeah, man, that it's crazy. It's I don't even know what to say really with it. It's just like, yeah, the fight was, Aljamain did well early. He obviously his game plan was just, apply pressure, get this fight to the ground, which we knew he was going to do. The one thing I noticed, like he wouldn't, like, if you're looking to get this fight to the ground anyway, kind of sit down on your punches more. The only thing he really connected hard with, he did land a nice like knee to the head on a kind of fake takedown, which was nice. But yeah, he wasn't sitting down heavy on the punches, and if you're a guy that you want this fight to get the ground, obviously be on top, but if you want this fight to be more of a grappling match than a striking match, commit to those shots at least, you know what I mean? Get some respect going, get his hands up and respect your shots, and I'll make it that much easier. But yeah, as far as the fight went on, it swayed and Jan started taking over and really kind of started I wouldn't say dominating, but really was having his way. And then yeah, that the knee up the middle, it's one of those rules, man. It's like I guess that's why Pride was really great. Stop barking. That's why Pride was really great because I mean I guess you could do it, but like I don't know what he was thinking. If he thought maybe just if his hands were off the mat, it doesn't matter about his knees or his feet, they could throw the knee. Maybe I don't know if he was thinking that, or just the heat of the moment type thing, or his corner actually said to do it. But yeah, it was definitely like a bonehead move to do that when a fight where you're now like you're taking over and you're on the road to winning this or finishing it, and it just cost you that, right? So worst way it could have possibly ended for everybody, really. Except
Yeah,
for
I still feel bad for him, right? Like for Sterling, like you don't want to win a title on DQ, and
No.
now like it's a situation where he really loses in both ways because there's going to be a side that thinks like you don't deserve to be champion because you won it by DQ, and then there's the side that's just going to doubt you even really being the champion. So it's a lose-lose for him.
Yeah.
But and I know, and then people are like, why is he out there trying to celebrate and enjoy it? I'm like, he's trying to make the most of a situation that sucked. Like he's finally completed his dream, but it's not the way he wanted it, but he's still trying to make the most of it because we know they're going to fight again, and it seems like Jan wants to have, or Sterling wants to have that fight, and they have to make that fight immediately. Yeah. So try to enjoy it and make the most of it. Like you've worked your ass off to get there. Sure, it wasn't you getting a finish or winning on the scorecards, but that's why they have those rules in place. As much as people don't agree that titles should change hands by DQ, they should. That's why those rules have been in for like 20 plus years now.
Yeah, so you said, it is lose-lose, 100%, like you said. So the people, I guess, questioning Aljamain or ripping on Aljamain, what do you expect him to do, I guess, is, he got, it was definitely a real shot. It wasn't like he just got, it was like a bullshit hit. It was a full-on knee to the head, and I don't know if he was embellishing it or not, maybe, but he was definitely hurt for sure from it. So either you continue the fight, and you go and lose eventually, like you're, how the fight was going, or you get finished even worse now because you've been maybe now concussed or wobbled a bit, and any shot that lands now might have the even better chance to finish you off. So you're doomed if you continue. You're going to lose, or now you don't continue. You get this DQ win, which it sucks, but now also you get your win bonus. You get double your money. People forget that shit, right? We're fighting for money here, championships as well, but money is big. So now you're guaranteed your second portion of your money, and now you're guaranteed championship money. You're now the champion no matter what, you're DQ. So now you're gonna get more, as far maybe sponsorships outside, you get more from your Reebok bullshit deal. I know you get more money as a champ, so you're gonna get more money regardless. Maybe as a champ now the contract changes too. Maybe up the pay there. So there's lots of at factor there. And now they're gonna do a rematch again. He might not be he's the champ, but he might not be the technical, he's the champ and not the real official champ because of a DQ. But, I don't blame the guy. And what do you expect him to do after the fight? Like, yeah, I'm sure he probably sat in the locker room and was probably crying a bit with his coaches because of the situation. But what do you expect him to be depressed for forever until the next fight? It sucks. Shit happens. And it didn't work out how you thought, but you still have the belt. You still, got paid. You're going to do it again. So enjoy the time and until the next time.
Yeah, I'm sure the optics don't look great, like him, partying with his team with some shots, but what else can he do, right? He's got to try to make the most of this situation. He is the champion, whether it may not look like that in the eyes of, some of the folks in the brass at the UFC or the fans. he is the champion, and I know people already like kind of looking past him as the champion with, Henry Cejudo saying he's coming back, even though
He says that every week.
He didn't really even retire, so like he's pretty much said he's coming back. But everyone's already talking about Jan and Cejudo. I want to see that, but you have to now focus. It's Aljamain Sterling is the champion, so he can still defend the title. Like he could win and ruin those plans, and eventually he gets the Cejudo fight, whatever. But it's just such a rough situation. I feel bad for Aljo. Like he's put in a tough spot. And as you were saying, like if he says in the fight, like if referee/doctor asks him, can you continue? And he says, yeah. And then obviously he's hurt and he gets finished. Well, he's at the back of the line now for a title shot, right? And you work so hard to get there. Like, I know it sucks. The optics look bad, but he did the right thing. He couldn't continue. He took a bad knee to the face. And, Jan may have lost as well. If that's definitely, if the fight continues, like that's a definite maybe 2-point deduction just for the blatancy of it. And they may have been, even in the scorecards. And, Jan, if they had to stop it there either too, like taking a point and say they finish the round, they take the point and then they stop it for whatever between rounds and go to the scorecards. Like Aljo could have won there on the scorecards just on, a point deduction, winning maybe. I thought he won the second round, and I think a lot of other people felt that way. But I don't know. There's a lot of optics about it, and I feel bad for Aljo. He's trying to make the most of it, and I respect him for that, trying to put on a smile in one of the worst situations we've ever seen in this sport.
Yeah. There's nothing else he can do, man. And I feel bad for the guy as far as that, just people, I'm sure he's getting hated on like crazy, but which are people that aren't in his situation, and they're not, the ones there, they're not the ones that are fighting for money and fighting for championships. So, the whole situation sucks. It's the worst case possible as far as the finish. But, it's over. Move on. Enjoy it. Have fun with regardless, win or lose. You're gonna feel like shit if you lose, obviously, for a bit. But still, have fun with your supporters, your family, and your friends, and whatnot. What are you gonna do? Like live in a closet until the next training camp? You know what I mean? Like, just like I said, it sucks for everybody, but it is what it is, and you got to move on. And the only way, the biggest thing for him to do now is, rematch and beat Jan. I mean, that would be the only way to kind of overcome this.
Yeah, and you know what? As we're talking about Aljo making the best of the situation, shout out to Merab Dvalishvili, Rajan At. Like those are true friends that are trying to get him excited about being the champion. Like I know it seemed like in some of those videos he was trying to get into it but wasn't into it. But to have a good support group in a situation like that, I think is huge as well. So I think that's a big part of it as well. So shout out to his teammates, his coaches. Like they understand the grind and the work he's got to get there. It wasn't the way he wanted it to be, but Aljamain Sterling is the UFC Bantamweight champion, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and that's what your team should do, and it is what it is, man. You know what I mean? You gotta. It's something that was out of his control, really. Well, unless he said, "Sure, I can continue," but I would have probably got finished that round if they did, or eventually, or just lost the fight the way it was going. But like I said, like the factors I mentioned, there was a lot at play, and who cares what everybody else thinks? You got to worry about yourself.
Yeah, especially in this sport where you're now trying to climb up the pay grade as well. You've got your goal. You're trying to become something else. And you know what? At least we know there's going to be a rematch, and there is that huge selling point on it. Like, what would have happened if that knee didn't land? Like, would Jan have finished the fight in the 4th round or in the 5th round or won on the scorecards? Or would Aljo have found a way to win? Like, there's so many of those variables as well. So this knee puts it kind of in an interesting spot. And they have an angle to kind of sell the rematch on as well, which I think will help when they ever make this fight again later in the year.
Yeah, I also think if the fight was closer than it was, or if Aljo was even winning, I think you wouldn't hear as many haters, obviously. But the fact that he was losing the fight, that's what really ruffled all the feathers.
I think as well, we should also be like, I know people are upset at like the optics and whatever for Aljo, but Where's the hate at Peter Yan for throwing a knee that everyone knows you shouldn't be doing, especially when you're going into the fight as champion? You should know the rules of this sport, whether you may like it or not. Like, you've been fighting the UFC for a number of years. You should know when a fighter has, 2 or 3 or all 4 points on the ground, knees cannot come towards the head or really at all.
Yeah, I know. It's such a weird situation. I know it was blatant, but some states have like different rule sets and whatnot, and they always explain, okay, you have 1 foot down, 1 hand down, don't play the game of touching, you know what I mean, like that. And I don't know, man. I just think like if both your hands are off the ground, you should be able to get kneed. That's just my opinion. You know what I mean? I think like if your both feet are on the ground and you have 1 knee down and your hands are up and you're like on your knees, like you should be able to knee him, I think, personally. But those aren't the rules, I guess. But yeah, I think it's something like that there'd be a lot less controversial knees, right?
I think even if those were the rules in this case, I don't think it would apply because I think Aljo had his hands at least half coming back up. But
his hands were off the mat, both of them. So, okay. I mean, still illegal in this terms. But if it wasn't like that, then it'd be different, right?
But it was weird too because if you watch it back on replay, it was like Jan was throwing the knee and stopped and got like the okay from the corner to throw it.
Yeah.
Like I understand your corner's telling you to do it, but that's just bad corner advice. Like you should know. It's the heat of the moment too, right? Like you're in there, you see an opening where you can finish a fight, but I don't know. It was just bad optics all around. Really, it sucks for everyone. Really, it sucks for Jan. And, Jan didn't make himself look good when he got there for the decision. He had his hand held up high like he was going to win the fight. Like, me handing in homework 3 days late, but still proud of myself for handing it in late. But I don't know. At least we know they'll rematch. And now with Cejudo seeming like he's back in the mix, he apparently announced he's no longer retired, even though I didn't know he was, because it seemed like anytime someone at flyweight or bantamweight had a big fight, he had a comment about them. So... He's back.
He always chirps no matter what. So until the actual fight's booked, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, what a just crazy event there. In that's the biggest, I think, talking point coming out of UFC 259 is that bantamweight title situation. Hopefully things can get worked out for a rematch soon. Obviously, I don't know how long Aljo's going to be in trouble, like with his head, as he took that big knee, or getting a medical suspension, what have you. But as well on that card, Josh, we saw Islam Makhachev really just put it on Drew Dober, and they've been talking about Makhachev as being, Khabib 2.0, and he really did show it. His wrestling was unbelievable, manhandled Dober, and then was able to submit him in the 3rd round with an arm triangle from the opposite side. And if I'm a lightweight, even though how stacked that division is, that's a guy I don't want to see coming up the ranks, coming for me, just on his insane wrestling prowess alone.
Yeah, man, the Dagestani guys, their wrestling grappling is top notch, and their pace they put on you, it's crazy. And yeah, he looked great, man. He's definitely an up and comer. I think he'll be a big name very, very soon. I think he'll beat a big name very, very soon or compete with. So yeah, it was impressive. Dober is no joke for sure. That's a big win. And yeah, I think that put him, I don't know what. I mean, I can go back to the ranks, but what rank he was, but I think that puts him in definitely a top 10 guy for sure. Next fight.
Yeah, after the fight at his press conference, he said he wants to fight. Makhachev wants to fight Tony Ferguson. So imagine if we got that. Khabib's student or little buddy gets to fight Tony, the guy that Khabib never got to fight. Would kind of be interesting.
That'd be cool. I would like that. I mean, it's kind of like it's a more risky fight for Tony than it is Makhachev for sure. There's a lot more to lose than to gain there, I think. Unless you just want to say I want to beat up Khabib's boy to kind of draw him back out to fight, but I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I just think that's there's more downside for Tony in that fight, I think.
Yeah, I mean that's what Makhachev wants. Who's to say he is going to end up getting that? But all in all, a big pay-per-view, a big spotlight on you, and you pass it with flying colors, showing why the hype is real on him. But I mean, the opener wasn't the greatest fight with Rakic and Thiago Santos, were two guys that just respected each other too much. I mean, Rakic wins. He's now, moving up the division, but I don't expect him to be anywhere near a title shot, especially with two kind of lull fights. Yeah. But I thought the prelims, though, Josh, I thought the prelims were awesome.
Yeah, it was great. The whole card, I mean, the card was awesome. But yeah, there were some great ones, man. It was good to see Cruz back in there, and he fought a good guy. Casey Kenny. He's good, man. He just Cruz. He did what Cruz does, and it worked out. I thought Casey was chasing Cruz too much, and that's not a game you want to play with Cruz. You got to kind of cut him off, and you kind of got to kind of guess where he's going to be instead of trying to aim more at him, because he moves so awkwardly and so much. And I think he did that a little too much. But yeah, it was good to see. I still think Cruz left himself in a lot of vulnerable positions where if somebody was a little bit more calculated, like Cejudo did, they could have taken advantage of him. And I would have liked to seen Casey Kenny chop the legs a little bit more. That's like when you get a guy that moves so much like that. First thing you want to do is limit his movement. So I think that would have been a bigger factor. But I'm glad to see Cruz get the win again. I'm a fan of Cruz, and it was nice to see one of the older guys come back and get a win.
Yeah, like, where do you think Casey Kenny goes from here? Because, Cruz was kind of a litmus test for him, and he doesn't pass it, even though, like, I had the fight for Kenny just because I gave him the first round, even though it was so close. But, like, honestly, like, I don't know where you go from Kenny, because this seemed to be, like, the fight that's catapulted into the next stratosphere. But he seems like he's still not there, and, Bantamweight's still such a sacked division in the UFC, so I'd expect him to fight a guy that's kind of hovering inside the top 15 of their rankings.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, it was good to see
anybody off hand, like, think of anybody. Yeah, there's some in that realm.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like, Kenny fought a good fight, but Cruz just fights that such good tactical style, right? Like, he doesn't have overwhelming power. He's just good everywhere, right? And that just makes him such a problem.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it does. But like I said, I've seen a lot of spots where it could have been, there could have been some consequences. It just, he was able to. Casey couldn't do it, but yeah, he's so awkward, right? But he's weird to fight, right? Because he does that weird shit. But like I said, I think Cejudo kind of showed how to beat him, and Casey just didn't follow that same game plan.
Yeah, tough for Casey, but great to see Cruz, get in there and get a big win. Back now at 135, and it's nice to see another name out there too, right? So, one of the greatest bantamweight of all time in my mind. Kyler Phillips looked great as well at 135 with getting the win against Song Yadong, and
yeah. I mean, I was talking to Song and when I was out there, and I asked him who he's fighting, and I didn't know who the guy was, to be honest. Kyler Phillips, I had never heard of him, and I was like, oh, I mean, and Song was like 4-5-0 in the UFC, so I thought they'd get him a bigger name. But yeah, and I watched the fight, man. The guy's good, very good. Very well rounded everywhere. His striking looked great. His footwork was awesome because I know how good Song is. So yeah, I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, Kyler in the first round hit Song with like a hook or an uppercut square in the jaw that would have finished most men. And Song just ate it. Like, shows a lot about the toughness of Song, but Phillips lived up to his nickname. He's the Matrix, and he hits you from all angles. And you know what? That's a great prospect for that they have at 135. And someone maybe they could match up with Cruz. A guy on the come up now, 9-1 as a pro, and he just hits you from all these different angles. I don't know if they end up doing it, but that's a good young up and comer that seems like he can do it all in the UFC at 135.
Yeah, no, he's got. I mean, definitely a bright future. I think he looks great. As far as Cruz, I want to see Cruz Aldo, man. WC.
Yes.
That's the one I want to see, and I think that would be a good one. Like I said, to see if Cruz can do the movement and can handle the kicks if Aldo throws him to chop him down. That would be one I want to see at the same weight class now, right? And then, yeah, I mean. I know that TJ is coming back, and I like to see him, maybe Sandhagen or something like that.
I think that's the fight they're trying to make. Yeah. Sandhagen and that. And now with the bantamweight picture being tied up, right? Like, you can easily make Sandhagen Dillashaw.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it would be a good one. And yeah, I think those two fights, if I'm the matchmaker, those are the ones I'm looking for.
Well, I mean, I'm down for any WEC forever and nostalgia trips that there may be. One WEC nostalgia trip that unfortunately had a sad story was Askar
Djibouti.
Askarov beating Joseph Benavidez, and
Yeah.
it was pretty one-sided, one-way traffic from the start of the fight. Like, I love Joe. I mean, he's a veteran and one of the nicest people in mixed martial arts, but I don't want to say a fighter should retire, especially when he seemed like he still could maybe have one or two more fights, but just how one-sided that was, like, do you think maybe we see one more fight left for Joe? Because he's got so many other ventures, right, outside of fighting that he can just kill and do, and like he's got his own podcast or movie reviews or fashion, posts and what have you. Like he's got other interests. I don't know if I want to see him still step in there and fight because he's such a lovable guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think he still definitely can compete. And he's fighting the top guys. And his last two losses were to Figueiredo, who's the best guy in the world at that weight class right now. And he's always fought the top guys. Other than Figueiredo's and Demetrius Johnson's, he's been the man. And it sucks that he couldn't get the title, but he's been right there for I don't know how many years, even the WC. So I think he's still he can still compete. I think he'll have trouble with those top, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys now. But let him be like you said, like a litmus test for like Cruz, Casey Kenny maybe type thing. Got somebody that's kind of coming up and obviously a big fight against Joseph Benavidez, and if they can pass him, then they can move on and work themselves into a title picture. Or if not, they got to kind of start back again and work their way up. So I think he can still compete. He's fighting good guys, and it was a one-sided fight. He didn't win in either rounds in my books. But yeah, I like to see him back in there, and just a little bit lesser of a caliber of opponent. I guess the step down, but we'll see.
If anything, I just want Joe to get one win and then put his gloves in the cage and just be like, go out in the sunset on a W. Just because it's kind of been it was a rough 2020. This fight was not, one he wants to remember too much. But if he's able to, get one more fight back and get a win or what have you, and if he called it then, I'd be very okay with it because he's such a great guy. And as you said, he's fought all at the highest level at 125 pretty much for 10 plus years. And I think that's a credit to the competitor and the athlete he was. But this was a prelim card that highlighted those flyweights, those bantamweights, which made a lot of people happy. I think that was kind of the success of the prelims, is those lighter weight guys that put on the show. I thought the prelim of the night and fight of the night, which did get I believe got a bonus as well, was Kenny Njoku against Carlos Ulberg, who was at light heavyweight. Ulberg won a contract in the Contender Series as Izzy Adesanya's teammate and was dominating the fight against Njoku. And then Njoku just caught a tired Ulberg up against the fence with a right hook, a little short right hook, and dropped him. And good for Njoku. Like, no one knew who this guy was. It was all about Ulberg, and he was the New Zealand Bachelor and training with Adesanya, and now there's at least another solid prospect at light heavyweight, and his name's Kenny Njoku.
Yeah, that was one where the skill sets didn't match the outcome. You know what I mean? It was just that one was just kind of Homer Simpson, toughness and just take shots and just kind of wear yourself out, and then I'm gonna knock you out. One of those type of things. But credit to that guy. He was able to take it. He stayed in the fight, and the other guy, like I said, was the more technical fighter, and he was putting it on him early, maybe a little bit too much. I think maybe. I mean, it's hard to do when you're in the fight because you just smell blood when you got him tagged and whatnot, and you just want to finish him. But there comes a point where you're like, okay, I'm not going to put this guy out. I got to kind of pull back a little bit and just kind of continue my offense, but not put 100% into it. And I think that's what he did. He just kind of kept his foot on the gas, and he wasn't able to do that for all 3 rounds. And eventually that guy just, kind of took it and came over and then, clipped him and knocked him out. So that was, it was good on that guy. What was his name again? Kennedy
Njoku.
Njoku, yeah. Good on him, man. That showed some, toughness and obviously physical toughness, but also mental toughness to stay in the fight and stay focused. And he came off with a big win.
Yeah, big win for him as well. Alberg was the opponent he beat, trains at City Kickboxing. City Kickboxing's only win was Kai Kara France, who had his back taken for pretty much the majority of the first round, and then was able to, get his opponent Rogerio Bontorin off of him, and then like folded him up like an accordion. And then we had that weird moment where he thought he won the fight, but I guess his corner told him the fight wasn't over, and he went to come back to punch Bontorin in the face, but Herb Dean stepped in. I know it was kind of a weird situation, though. I thought Herb did stop the fight. His corner may have just been a little confused, but nonetheless, like, Kai Kara France always brings the entertainment. That's a guy I think you want either to close out your prelims or open up a pay-per-view, because he's coming off like a round of the year performance against Brandon Royval, and he's just an exciting guy at flyweight and bringing the excitement back at 125.
Yeah, that was, I think, a case of what was the Brazilian guy's name? He fought
Rogerio Bontorin.
Bontorin. Yeah, he was dominating the fight. He had his back the whole round, and I think it was one of those where he probably burned his arms out. When you're trying to squeeze something like that for like 4 minutes or plus, that wears on you. I felt that in the cage before. And after the round is over, you get up and your arms are just like, bricks, and it sucks. And when they got a guy that, he's defending really well, but he's not using a lot of energy there. You're using more trying to finish him. So I think right when he got off, he just kind of unloaded and cracked him and finished him off. And yeah, the finish was weird. I think Herb just he didn't go like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the main signal for the fight's over. So without that, it was kind of like, is it still happening? Did I just call the fight myself? So it was kind of that weird thing where I think Herb just kind of figured it was over, but didn't do the wave off, and it just kind of created some confusion. But regardless, it didn't matter.
Yeah, it was a little weird, but I mean, the knockout was great, and good for Kai Kara France, because like I said, he's like an Energizer bunny. He brings some sort of energy and is an exciting guy. But that was UFC 259. UFC will be back on pay-per-view in like 3 weeks' time with the heavyweight title on the line at UFC 260. But before I get you out of here, Josh, let's just do a little look ahead at this upcoming Saturday's card, where Leon Edwards, he's back for the first time in like 2-3 years, taking on Belal. Remember the name Muhammad. It's a big step up for Belal Muhammad, taking this fight on about a month's notice time. But like we talked about with Adesanya, no risk it, no biscuit. And if he gets the win, like, talk about a guy really just standpointing his name against the number 3 guy in the UFC rankings.
Yeah, it's this is a tough for Edwards, because he has had how long has he been out for?
Since like 2019. He last fought Dos Anjos back in the July of 2019.
So he's been out for that long with many reasons, and then unable to get opponents, and then finally now he's going to fight a guy that is way down in the ranks, working himself up, and it's a risky fight, man. So it sucks if he goes out there and Belal gets the win. This would be a big hit for him. Kind of waiting all this time and then fighting a guy that was lesser ranked. And then getting and losing, right? It's going to kind of plummet his stock a bit. But it's a big opportunity for Belal, on the other hand, step it up against a guy that was a big name and working his way up, and a lot of people didn't want to fight, and this is a huge opportunity for him.
Now, with the inactivity for Leon Edwards, are you a guy that believes in cage rust? Because being away for like almost 3 full years, that's a long time. Like, you can train all you want. I know Leon had a bad bout with COVID as well, which he's clearly over. But nonetheless, like, that may linger with him. But still, he hasn't had a cage fight since 2019. Like, are you a guy that believes in cage rust?
I guess to everybody's different. Some guys do. I think after the first couple minutes, 2-3 minutes, then you'll start to kind of feel like you'll remember the feeling again. It is different than training for sure. Once you're in the cage, it's a different entity for sure. You can try to simulate all you want. It's just not the same. And then some guys, they can just hop right back in there and it'd be totally fine. Some guys it'll take them a couple minutes, a round, maybe 2 rounds, which at that point it's too long. Everybody's different, man, and we'll see how we can react to that.
Yeah, all in all, I think it's a solid fight. Like, if you can't make the Chimaev fight anymore for Edwards, and good on Muhammad for sticking his name out there, and a guy that's proven he has potential to be a top 10, top 5, welterweight in the UFC. So I'm excited for it. I'm also excited on this card, Josh, for all the Canadians that are fighting on this card as well. You got Charles Jourdain, Gavin Tucker on the card. And, I mean, it's a big weekend as well for Canadian mixed martial artists for not just this UFC card, but CFFC. They've got like their card on Friday night. It's like Canada versus USA. Like Aaron Jeffries fighting in the main event for their middleweight title. Jasmine Jasdavicius, Johan Leones. A handful of other Canadians as well are on that card. So it's nice to see a lot of Canadians getting a big shine this weekend.
Yeah, it seems like it's the Team Canada weekend, so hopefully we pull away with a lot of victories and on both shows, and we'll see what happens. But we're rooting for our guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, best of luck to all the Canadians, especially Aaron Jeffrey fighting in the main event at CFFC this Friday, CFC 93 on UFC Fight Pass, and that's probably the fight. If he wins that fight, wins the title, the middleweight title against Colin Huckbody, he has to get the call of the UFC, right? Like, especially the tear. That's 4 wins in a row against like UFC level fighters that you've now kind of beaten, and especially if he gets a finish as well, he has to get a call, right?
You would think, right? I mean, I hope so. I hope so for him. But yeah, you never know. All you can do is just keep winning and do your thing, and then see what happens. But I would think so, man. I kind of has to be, especially at his weight class, for middleweight. Like, I think he could easily get a shot in there for sure.
And you know what, as well, speaking of Canadians, sure, there's Canadians fighting in the UFC and out at CFFC. We have our first Canadian mixed martial art event since the start of the pandemic, RFC 13, which goes down in British Columbia. The first event with Elias Teodoro and Matt Dwyer in the main event. So, I mean, it's great to see Canadian MMA back, at least on the west coast of Canada.
Yeah, I mean, it's a start, which is good, right? But I mean, it's good to see, but we need to we need that everywhere, man, especially out here, out in the eastern side. But yeah, that'd be good for them. I know Elias is part of it too. He's fighting on it, and he's some, I don't know if he's part promoter or whatever, but yeah, hopefully all the luck for those guys in that show, and hopefully it's a success.
Yeah, and as well, I think the next weekend is the BFL has their first show on UFC Fight Pass. So the mixed martial arts scene, at least in British Columbia, is really starting to heat up, and Canadians are getting opportunities, but still need things to clear up here, because I'd like to work an event and see some fights in our province.
Yeah, that would be nice. You know what I mean? And none of this, the bullshit we're living in now, it'd be great. And not only for us, but all the fighters that are sitting there chomping the bit and not having anywhere to perform and make a living and extend their careers.
Yeah, I mean, let's just pray that hopefully by summer or September we can get back in there, because it all depends on people that it's out of our control, right? It's on everyone, on government control right now.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's right. It's our government, and I don't put a lot of faith in them.
No, not right now, but hopefully they can surprise me. But Josh, thank you once again for coming and hang out and breaking down pretty much all the happenings from UFC 259, and going over the status of this now depleted, evaporated women's featherweight division. But we'll be back next week to recap all the happenings in mixed martial arts. And before I let you go, once again, plug your IG, because I'm sure people want to see all the great memes you post.
That's pretty much all I do nowadays. At Gentleman J Hill, you can find me there. And is that a Sabres jersey you're wearing?
Yeah, man. Go Sabres, even though they're awful.
Go Sabres. Do you cheer for them just because you like the Bills and they're just like a kind of like weird cousin?
Well, I think, if you grow up in Ontario, you pretty much get all the Buffalo TV out there. So you kind of feel Buffalo's like the ugly cousin of Canadians, I guess, is the way you do it.
Horrible, horrible team, bro. Sorry to hear that.
Aren't you a Flyers fan?
I am, yeah. Well, that's a team there.
Sure. Okay. But you know what? We'll save the hockey talk for later. Josh, once again, thanks for hanging out, and we'll do it again, same bat time, same bat channel, all next week. Thanks again, man.
Thank you, brother.